to your friendly neighborhood comic show, everybody. I am your host, Lauren, your friendly neighborhood bi. And today we've got another indie comic creator interview. We are cooking with creatives as always. And we got Ryan Drost, who is the creator, I hope I said that right, probably didn't, of StealthHAMMER. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well. It is Drost. It's a long O.
Drost. I knew it after I said it. I was like,
that's how I always know it's a telemarketer, is that they call up and like, is Ryan Drost there? I'm like, nope, you have the wrong number. But no, it's not a problem whatsoever. I'm doing great. Happy to be here. Very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you. I know, if anybody has ever, done any interviews for content creators or done reviews or do a podcast, that after a while, you start getting a lot of emails and a lot of requests, which is wonderful, but can also be overwhelming. I was super happy to hear from you and your wife, Jamie, about StealthHAMMER, because it just seems like it has that feel good energy that everybody can access. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the idea behind it. Like, I wanted to create a story that was kind of like the stuff I grew up with. I'm a child of the 80s, so like I often say like all the toy companies had a file with my name on it in the 80s because I was 5 years old when the 80s, not to date myself, but I was 5 years old in the 80s when the 80s started, and I was 15 when it ended. So I was in that peak time period of like all, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Star Wars, all that stuff. But I also was in the time period of like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and all the Jim Henson goodness and stuff like that. And like, so anything that was involving like what they called back then all ages, even though some of the stuff in those things, as you well know, would give you nightmares. It was that type of storytelling I wanted to do with StealthHAMMER, and that's kind of, and as we get into it, I'll get into more of that. But yeah, that was the type of story I wanted. I wanted that feel good Jim Henson vibe with like some cool action, and just throwing everything in there that was like stuff I grew up with that I loved. But still putting the story first, making sure like, okay, I want to put this in there. That doesn't really work for the story. So like certain things stayed out, but everything that's in there is like these awesome love letters to the stuff I grew up with. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much of those things. And I can kind of tell there were like a lot of influences like that, because that time period you're talking about is so fun because there's so much fantastical stuff. But there's also so much sci-fi stuff. They got this other stuff in the middle. You got Spies over here, and putting all that together can be so tough. But you've done such a great job in StealthHAMMER already. I wanted to put up this image that you sent me. This doesn't even compare to the actual covers, which I'll put up as well during the interview. But it's so pretty. I mean, this one of my favorite things about this series just from the start is that it's one of the most colorful and probably immersive worlds that I've had the pleasure of reading in a long time. And I read a lot of comics, as people know. So I know you've already mentioned how, and I've mentioned the color and such, but what were some of your other top priorities when creating this world?
So, I'm the writer and creator of it, but one of my big priorities was getting the right artist on this. So, and I needed someone that could do that cartoony style because I wanted it to be all ages. I wanted it to be inviting to someone, but also I needed detail in it because the big thing with this story, and you might get hints of it from having read it already, but like everything matters in this story. So if you see something in the background or someone says a certain thing, a dialogue or whatever, like those are potentially plot points that are going to be addressed later, and we'll circle back to things. And Joel Jackson, who is my artist, was like, he fit that bill perfectly. Like he had this cartoony anime type style in there, but also could like throw so much detail in there. And there would be times that he would throw stuff in there that wasn't even in the script, and then all of a sudden became like story elements because he put it in there. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, we could do this and we could do this. So it was critical there. And then you mentioned the coloring, which, as you know from being a comic reader, like a lot of people don't talk about the colorists very much.
Right.
And it's color isn't, you notice color when it's done wrong, but you don't always notice color when it's done right. And color was very important because I wanted to have that bright, vibrant feel to it, very inviting. And I was blessed to work through some contacts I had to get in touch with for the first issue, Ross Hughes, who has worked with DC and Marvel. He did like Green Lantern, which is all about color.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So I worked with him for the first issue. He sadly was kind of retiring from doing a lot of big projects. And then on the second issue, I worked with Chris Sotomayor for a little bit, who has also done like Batman and Spider-Man and things like
Yeah.
that. And he did a few pages for us, and then he just got overwhelmed with work and he couldn't do anymore. And then was like, oh boy, I need to find someone else.
Right.
And then I was reached out to Luis Delgado, who had worked on the last TMNT, The Last Ronin,
yes.
and Ghostbusters for IDW and stuff like that. And I loved his artwork too, his coloring work. And he was just like, yeah, I'm all on board. So I've worked with 3 amazing colorists, and they've all done a great job of still giving it that same feel and look all the way across through Joel's artwork. So
yeah, no, the art definitely stands out so much in this series. Kind of, I mean, the series I was thinking about as you were talking actually reminds me of By the Horns from Scout Comics.
Yeah, I love By the Horns. Oh my god,
yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. Yeah.
I feel like there would be a great potential for a crossover between
I would love that.
the
Yeah,
two. Like,
absolutely.
I'll have to connect you guys because we've had Marcus on the show and we've talked with Jason.
Yeah.
They're both lovely. But yeah, like it just has that good energy. Like even though there's dark elements that happen at times throughout both your series individually, there's just so much good towards that. And one of the things that go ahead.
I was gonna say the big thing for me too was like I wanted to bring these 2 elements that I loved, which was 3 elements really. It was I'm bringing kind of some superheroes into it because the main character is kind of your stereotypical superhero. But then I also wanted to bring this world of like high tech, crazy gadgetry and supernatural mythology because I love world mythologies.
Yeah,
so, all different kinds. So I wanted to bring some of that in. So I kind of say it's like. And I know we mentioned it earlier, but like it's kind of like bringing Mega Man meets Jim Henson's Creature Shop together. So that's kind of I was like, okay, I love these type of elements because I grew up with like He-Man where you had fantasy and sci-fi together, or Thundar the Barbarian where you had the same 2 things coming together, and I just love meshing those 2 worlds together. So
yeah, that was one thing I was actually going to ask is, the sci-fi, you got fantasy, and then you also got the go-go gadgets like Inspector Gadget and Impossible Feeling. I mean, Phineas and Ferb, it doesn't matter what generation you are. There's some spy cartoony thing you can kind of remember probably. How did you decide which elements to lean into? Like which gadgets to focus on and then which sci-fi stuff to put together?
Yeah, so it really how this all came about, just like the very origin of even the character, is based off of my wife, and her nickname is StealthHammer. Like that was a nickname she got from a job she a couple different jobs she had.
What?
Yeah, which is the coolest nickname ever, right?
That's badass. I would love to be a StealthHammer. Get out of the way.
So she worked at an ad agency, and she's a graphic designer, and she submitted something to for a client to consider when the owner of the company had submitted like 6 or 7 different ideas. Well, the client chose hers. And so the next time it got to go open to everybody else, the owner of the company sent out an email saying, if anyone wants to submit ideas, but watch out for stealth, referring to my wife. So that became her nickname for a little while. Then she worked at a different place, and she was in charge of brand compliance. So she was the one that kind of had to say, okay, you're using the wrong color, or the logo has to be this size. So her boss said, oh, you're the one that has to lay the hammer down. So then she blended the 2 together, and she's been known as StealthHammer probably for at least the last decade plus.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I absolutely love how that, like, you're kind of like, she was called that for a while. I'm like, well, she has this name forever now because it's a comics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, we always joked it'd make a great superhero name. And so we talked about like, oh, what would her powers be and stuff like that. Well, then for one of her birthdays, I went to Baltimore Comic-Con, and I had an artist there draw her as a superhero. And I was like, here's StealthHammer. As soon as I saw it actually like in real physical form, like this character that we've joked about for a while, I was like, okay, maybe this could actually be something. And as soon as I thought that, the best way I can relate this is there's the legendary story that Paul McCartney wrote the song Yesterday in like 15 minutes. He woke up one day and had a song stuck in his head, and he wrote it out, and that was the song Yesterday. It was kind of like that. Like the second I was like, okay, maybe this could be something, all of a sudden like ideas started flooding my mind of like, okay, who's her friends? Who's her family? Who's her enemies? How'd she get her powers? What's her motivation? All this type of stuff. And I'm like, we're still on vacation at the time. I'm on my phone typing stuff in notes and like putting all this stuff together of like these ideas are coming in. Everything that was on that note document made it into the story, other than I think one thing. There was just like one thing where I was like, okay, that's a little too much. But everything else, I was like, okay, this is all going to work. And then it was a matter of putting a story together where all of that made sense. Because again, if it doesn't make sense, it's not a good story, and story has to come first.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it was just like, okay, how do I bring these things together and make it all work? And there was things in just life that happened that was just inspiring. So like Ari the elf, who is a very fun character to write, by the way. He came from, we were blessed to go on a trip to Iceland, and they have like a lot of belief in elf stuff and everything else in mythology. And I picked up this little guy right here.
Oh,
that became the inspiration for Ari the elf. And then there was like the goddess Aurora. They talked about the Aurora Borealis, and we went and watched this thing, and they were talking, oh, the goddess Aurora, and I was like, ooh, that would be cool. So there's these things in life that I kind of pulled in that kind of inspired me, and then it just worked into the story like magically. I don't know how else to put it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Sometimes it just does work out creatively. Like those are the moments and the projects that like creators dream of, is just all of a sudden it comes together and you're like, I don't know how I did it, but done. That's it. Stamp, approved, done.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask, especially because, you know, you've talked about Jamie, your wife, and now, you know, the character Jamie in the story, obviously inspired by her. Jamie is such, like, as I describe it, a golden retriever character. Just full of life, bouncing around everywhere, even when everybody's like, everything's garbage. She's just bouncing around. Is your wife actually like that?
So I'm probably, she's a bit more introverted. I'm the extrovert of the two of us. But she's very sociable. Now, I will tell you the tagline, which you probably noticed in the comic, of "That's Not How This Story Ends," is an actual tagline that my wife uses.
Nice.
So it's the idea that, like, don't give up, don't keep trying. Like, there's been times things have happened where it's like, oh, we missed out on that, and she's like, nope, that's not how this story ends. Let's keep going. Like, so she does have that, fight for truth and justice, and let's not give up type of personality. So it was very easy to put that into the character.
Yeah, it sounds like that's almost like a mantra of hers that kind of got instilled into a comic. And those of you watching this later, there's Jamie again in the comic on the left with the very special cape. What was that? I'm sorry. I got so excited pulling that picture up. I lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. So you're talking about the theme. That was like my favorite thing I wanted to actually ask you about, was the fact that that's such a recurring theme, is this is not how story ends, and you just keep going. And like you said, in other words, basically we can choose our own endings. We make them what we want. We don't have to just stop when things get hard, things like that. But why did you want to include this mantra into StealthHammer, and so often? Because it's not like you just do it at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
I know, like, especially in issue 1 and 2, it's everywhere, like every couple pages probably.
Yeah. It's very much like I wanted to be that Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility type of mantra. And I wanted that to live in the character and everything. So it embodies the character. And the reason it was important to me is because that's how my wife and I both have lived our lives. It's like things get tough. That doesn't mean that you give up. I can give you a great example. Was 8-9 years ago, I lost my job. The place I worked for was closing their site, and I got the news, and I had 2 months before I was going to have to go. Because they were closing a site, you get 60 days notice type of thing. So I had a job for 2 more months. The day after I found that out, my wife found out she was losing her job.
Oh, geez.
And she was a contractor, and the company just decided to do it to get rid of contractors as a expense savings thing. So here we were, 2 of us, both without jobs, and neither one of us without our jobs because we were bad at them. We lost our jobs because something happened.
Just life,
Right. And it could have been so easy to just like kind of wallow in that and just like, but we actually saw it as an opportunity. Like, okay, is there an opportunity for us to move to a different location in the country? Is it, what do we want to do with this? Where do we want to go? and we live in the Cleveland area, and we just decided
Mhm.
to stay here. It's, you know, and I probably within a month or two found another job, which is the place I currently work at now.
Mhm.
So obviously I found a good place. I've been with them for almost 9 years now,
Yeah.
and she found a job relatively quickly too, and it just kind of worked out. And I think that's kind of the idea, is like, if you don't give up on something, if you kind of try to find the good in something, or opportunity in something, that it doesn't have to be the end, you know? So
Yeah, and I just really love that, because I think mantras like that are super helpful. Like, I know some people are like, "Oh, you say this thing to yourself, that's weird or cheesy or whatever." But depending on your own life experience and your own struggles, right? I
yeah,
know, like, I've had my own mental health issues in the past, and mantras have helped me through that.
sure,
So
absolutely.
I think that's just such a cool element that you brought to this book, because again, this is for all ages, so it can resonate with somebody
Yeah,
that's 90 years old, 50 years old, 27 like I am, 16-year-olds, 5-year-olds, like,
yeah,
they can read that and go, "Oh yeah, I can remember that in the future." Like,
yeah.
people are going to read your comic, and their hard moments, remember that.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
just so
and yeah,
cool.
and that's the idea behind it. It's one of those things, and she's going to go through some challenges, of course. Like, I had someone
Mhm.
one time that read the first issue when we only had the first issue, and they were just like, to your point, like, they were like, "Oh, she's just too peppy of a character. I just can't identify with her," and stuff. I was like, "You understand? Like, she's gonna go through trials. She's gonna go like she's not gonna just be bubbly the whole time. She's not gonna, like,
Yeah.
we're gonna break her down a bit, and
Well,
see, does that mantra still resonate for her even when the times get really, really tough."
yeah,
So
absolutely. No golden retriever character or person or whatever stays that way all the time. There's
right,
always something, and that's how you know it's pretty bad too, is when it breaks a person or character
yeah,
like that. Like, I'm a huge fan of Supergirl, and I've actually been rewatching some of it, and that's a big part of her character,
yeah,
particularly in the CW show of it. Is,
yeah,
yeah, she's this golden retriever that wants to help everybody, kind of like, similar to Clark in her own right, but
yeah,
then at the end of the day, when things get really tough, she just,
yeah,
when she wants to give up, it's over. So I think it'll be really cool, hopefully, to see, like you said, those trials for
yeah,
Jamie and this series, and what's going to happen when something does push her that low, and how she can still hopefully believe in that mantra that you're
yeah,
saying, or if that mantra would change, because that
yeah.
can happen too with life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and side note, like, I think they got the most perfect actress to play the character of Supergirl, because
Oh yes.
she's able to embody, like, both the super positive, but then also, like, the struggle. I have, like, so
Yeah.
many episodes I'm behind on, but I've been watching it since the beginning. So, but yeah, it's a
Oh
great
man, I was gonna say we'll have to talk later, Ryan, because I can talk about that all day. This will become a Supergirl podcast episode if we're not careful. But I completely agree. She's so good. One of my favorite moments, actually, I think it was back season 1, so you should probably have seen it then.
Oh yeah, I'm
It's
only like maybe 10 to 12 episodes
Yeah,
behind. So yeah,
it's the red tornado episode, and when
yeah,
she, like, gets so angry in that one scene, and you've got the, because it was on CBS at first, so you got the actual good effects, right,
yes,
of her
yes,
eye vision, and you see her veins popping, and she's mad as heck thinking about her loss of Krypton and stuff. That was just so good. I was like,
yeah,
sold. Even if
yeah,
she's
yeah.
young here, she's sold. She's gonna grow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, same thing with this character. It's just, she's just, like, the first two issues gets her started on her journey, and, like,
Yeah,
that journey is gonna have some struggles and some challenges
yeah,
and everything else. Is how does she respond to that? And yeah, sometimes it's gonna be good, sometimes it's not gonna be so good. So
yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk about the character of Dr. Alexander,
yes,
because he is a very fun character, villain, just crazy guy. Like,
yeah,
he's just so fun. He
yeah,
reminds me of a mix of Syndrome, I believe his name is, from Incredibles.
okay, yeah,
Incredibles is for the
yeah,
villain of that. And then just every Scooby-Doo villain ever. That's just like, you menacing kids and you dumb dog.
yeah.
Like, I absolutely love the character you've made of him. What kind of villain did you want to make when you created him? What was kind of your intention there?
So my inspiration for him and his brother, Dr. Everett, my
Yeah.
inspirations for them was actually, I mentioned Mega Man earlier. It
Yeah.
was Dr. Light and Dr. Wily.
Hmm.
So Dr. Wily was really kind of that inspiration, where it's just like, he doesn't feel like he's gotten what he deserves,
Hmm.
and he resents his brother, and there's a whole reason as to why behind that. He basically feels like he should have been the one where in the position that his brother has, all the fame, the fortune, and all that type of stuff. And so there's a lot of envy going on with him. But yeah, Dr. Wiley was my inspiration for him, and then he just kind of evolved into like, okay, what else? And there's gonna be some surprises with him too. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, basically it's that typical, and you kind of get hints of this in the second issue. It's the typical, like, he wants everything, and he's now working for someone who has promised him everything. So so we have the main bad guy of Jormungand, who is kind of behind the scenes. We haven't really seen him yet, but he's the one that has why Dr. Alexander has turned on his brother and his family, is because he's made promises to him of like, yep, I can get you everything you've always wanted. So
of course. And people that are super envious or jealous, they get desperate if it gets too far, and then they're willing to believe anything, even if logically they would never believe it.
Right. Exactly. So
super unfortunate for him, but it's so fun to watch. I gotta say, it is very fun to watch how ridiculous he can get.
And the fun thing with it too was, so again, kind of pulling personal history and stuff like that into character development, was my wife's family is very much into like ancestry stuff and all that, and they actually have a book of like their relatives that go back away and everything else. So I asked my wife she has a copy of it, and I asked her like, well, pull that book out, maybe we could get some good names out of it or something like that. And she mentioned Alexander, and I was like, oh, that's going to be the bad guy's name. Like, just Dr. Alexander sounded like a bad guy's name. And then she mentioned Everett as a past family member. I was like, Dr. Everett, that sounds like a good person. So like, there's just these names that just kind of like click. Sometimes when you hear them, you're just like, okay, that just kind of works. It just has the right feel to it. So not that anyone named Alexander is a bad person, but Dr. Alexander just sounded like a good villain name.
Look, I'm pretty sure whichever Luthor is in Batman vs. Superman is Alexander. That's all I need to know.
Right, there you go.
That's it. Like, no Alexanders, please. Apologies to all Alexanders out there. We are not an Alexander hating podcast. Absolutely not. I wanted to talk more about the art, because in particular, I think it was issue 2, because you sent me the first 2 issues. I think the second one in particular, there were some remarkably challenging art sequences, like a full page. You've got all these consecutive things going, and you've got little boxes here, you got big boxes here in circles, and you've got lettering boxes trying to make their way in there. Like, I imagined the letterer cried while they were looking at this page, but it all came together so well. Like, I looked at the page and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. But my eyes were still able to follow everything. And it was so well done. How did you decide how much that you wanted to put into each page, and when it was appropriate for more?
So first off, I also want to I've given credit to everybody else. I want to give credit also to my letterer, Dave Sharp. He has worked, again, he's a veteran in the comic book industry. You can see his name in so many different things. I actually had someone ask me one time, they're like, how did you get Dave Sharp to work on this? I was like, I asked him, like, I was like, what's your rate, and would you be willing to do this? And he was like, yeah. And he was actually excited to do it, because he said he doesn't get to work on many all ages type of things. So, I mean, total credit to him. I surrounded myself with a lot of good talent. Like, I am a total like noob to all this, but I was like, let me surround myself with good people. So what I do as far as creating the story to make sure kind of things flow and make sense is I do what I call a writer's storyboard. So everyone's seen, like in movies, behind the scenes, you get the storyboard artists that show, okay, this scene's going to happen here, this scene's going to happen there. What I do is I take a piece of paper, I draw like rectangles on it, just like for the pages. And I start writing what's going to happen on each page. And it's just like little quick bullet points and everything else. And then I think about, okay, how many panels are we going to need to fit all of that in there? Does it work? Does it flow easily to the next page? And I just start moving stuff around. And then finally I get to a point where I can picture it in my head and be like, okay, I can see this happening here, this going here, and all that. Then I start writing the script off of that.
Oh wow! So you do like almost the visual organizing before the full script.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
And then I send after I'm done with the script, it goes through, of course, about 12.5 revisions, because it's never good the first time. Uh, and then I send it to Joel, and Joel reads it cold because he doesn't know the story. Like he knows some things I've told him, and that's about it. So it's actually really good because he reads it cold and he's like, does this make sense? And there's been a few times where he comes back to me and says, what were you going for here? Like, what did you want? And like, I'll be like, oh, okay, I obviously wasn't very clear because I'm in my own head writing it. Yeah, I'll write. It's amazing because I will write some stuff where it's super detailed. Like you talked about the one double page spread where it's like the big map scene and everything else. And you see all that. That was like 2 to 2.5 pages of script to kind of fit all that in there. And literally, when you're writing a script to an artist or for the comic, you're writing it to the artist. So I'm like writing to Joel in there, like, if you can't fit all this in here, that's okay. Just like, these are the really important parts and stuff. And then he would fit in all of that and more.
Wow.
And then there's pages like the very last page of the second issue where we see the goddess Aurora and everything else. And I literally like wrote 2 sentences or 3 sentences and just said, here's what we're going for on this page. And he draws this most amazing 1-pager with like the other elves in the background and a fairy and everything else. And I was just like, oh my God, that's awesome. And like, I was like, how did he get all of that from what I wrote? And it's because we're truly collaborating. Like, he comes up with stuff. And that page is a good example of that too, because he drew all that, and then he drew this fairy on there that looked really cool. And I was like, that, which was not in the script at all. And I go, I really like that. Like, I did write that there was fairies, but I didn't write that particular character. And the second I saw the character that he had drawn, it immediately had a personality. It immediately had, okay, a backstory and everything else. I was like, okay, here's who that character is. Now I have to come up with a name. I came up with a name for the character. And like, now I have a whole mythos behind how the fairies work in this world. So in the story going forward, the female fairies are going to be the warrior type, and the male fairies are going to be the magic users. So I already started like kind of developing that and everything else. And it was all because he drew a female fairy with a spear on 1 page that wasn't even in the script, is now a story element that's going to be going on forward. So
yeah, I love when that happens. It's so nice, like you said, with the collaboration, when even if one person's like, yeah, just do this, and the other one's like, okay, but I also did this way thing, and they're like, boom, like done. Like, sometimes I wonder if that's like how, like on The Mandalorian, how Grogu was created or something. Like somebody just there was like, hey, what about this too? And somebody's like, genius. And that's
if you have the cover to the first issue, where you can bring it up again, I can give you another really great example of that. So on that page, you see Dr. Everett in the background with these robots all around him. So when he was first drawing what Dr. Everett would look like in his style and everything else, he drew this little robot in his shoulder, and I was like, ooh, I really like that. And he goes, yeah, I figured that like he would have these robot assistants to kind of help him along, because he's very absent-minded and he's got a lot going on. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I'll write that into the story and everything else. Next thing I know, I get this cover image from him, and there's 8 robots on. And I said to him, I was like, Joel, you do understand like how my mind works. These aren't just 8 random robots and we're never going to see them again. Like, I now have to come up with names for all of them, personalities for all of them, what their functions are, how they're going to fit into the story.
You know, that's the thing with big family. You have to make it work.
Right. But it was one of those elements that just worked because he drew this little robot on a shoulder on a concept art piece. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And then he did it, and then he went a little overboard. But I love the fact that he went overboard, because we ended up with these great characters called the Labites.
Absolutely. Yeah, random, especially with drawing characters and writers seeing them and being like, oh, actually I want that. I know that was so that was actually where Mystique came from for Marvel Comics, where Dave Cochran was just drawing one day, and Claremont, you know, this is a story I've been told at least, Claremont looks down and goes, hey, that looks good. Can you do this to it? And next thing you know, we're getting Mystique, and look where she is now. Like, it's how it happens.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, we're gonna have 8 robots like beating up the X-Men or something. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Sentinels. Thank God.
And to do a really like deep cut in pop culture that not everyone's gonna remember or know, but in my mind, all these labites became kind of reminded me a lot of Batteries Not Included, the movie Batteries Not Included.
Yes,
Little robots from outer space type of thing. That's not where they're from, but they just kind of reminded me of those, and I loved that movie as a kid. So I was like, okay, they kind of work. That's kind of how they work together. They kind of help build things and work together and everything else. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think they're adorable. That's the thing. I tell people all the time, if you do cute little like animated robot characters or animals, we're all sold. That's all you have to do. And then make a plushie.
That's all you need. Yep. Yep.
That's all people want. I did want to ask about one more thing, and I don't know if you can answer it because it might have been letterer's choice, might have been Dave's. But you know, and maybe that's just a plot thing that went over my head, but I know towards more the beginning and end of the issues typically, that some of those lettering boxes, they're like kind of like Word document boxes. I wasn't sure. Is there a specific reason for that in terms of like, is this like some journaling that's happening?
Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, you totally picked up on it the right way. Yeah. So and that was actually in the script. And I conveyed that to Dave when I was sending it to him. I was like, okay, as we read in the story, her grandmother has a journal and it's passed along to her and everything else. But I was like, okay, what would a teenager now do? Like they wouldn't necessarily, I mean, yes, some of them have physical journals and they write in them and stuff like that. But I was like, they would probably type it out on a tablet. Like they probably would have like Word documents in a folder someplace if they wanted to keep a journal. It'd be a digital journal.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea behind it, was that I said to him, I was like, this is kind of her digital journal. She's writing it out on a tablet. Can you make the narration boxes look like it would be something from like a Windows screen or something like that? So that's what he did. And yeah, it was such a cool thing. And then I've had a lot of people that mention that, and they're like, so was that exactly what you said? Like, is that the idea behind it? I'm like, yeah, and I'm glad you picked up on it.
No, it was so well done. I love when letterers, whether they come up with it or they're instructed to do it and they find a way to, you know, make it work. Actually, I love when letterers are able to do that, because to me, it just, even if it seems simple to others, to me, it's just brilliant. I'm like, oh, yeah, absolutely do that. Make the box look something different, because people don't really, I feel like some people don't appreciate how important lettering is, and the wrong shape, the wrong font, the wrong size, the wrong everything can change an entire, not only a page, but entire issue.
Yeah. Well, and then like we had a character named Marzana, who there was like a backup story in there that we got to kind of get introduced to her. She's a Polish deity of death, by the way. And I found out about her from watching an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. So
perfect.
They were doing some song about like mythologies around the world, and I heard the name Marzana. I was like, I've never heard that name before. And I looked it up and found out, you know, there was this Polish deity of death. Hence playing into what I was saying about like stuff I grew up with, like Dark Crystal and everything else. It's like, because my wife saw that character and that after we created her, and she's just like, this is an all ages comic, right? I was like, yeah, it's all ages in the sense that like anyone can read it, enjoy it and everything else. But that doesn't mean I'm against leaving kids with some nightmares every once in a while because a character looks creepy. Like, we're not going to show blood.
A couple nightmares. That's fine.
We're not going to show blood and guts and everything else. But like Return to Oz was an all ages movie, and if you've ever seen that movie, there are some very disturbing things. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is an all ages movie, but that boat ride
it's messed up. So it's pretty messed up,
right? So that's what I wanted to kind of do with some of the characters. Like, I want them to be creepy looking, but we're not going to traumatize a child.
Yeah, but it's okay if they leave their mark. Like, I remember, I'm a huge fan of Buffy and the original Charmed show, and I still remember in Charmed, it was like, what, season 1 or 2 maybe, the scene where like Prue is like, she falls asleep in a bathtub, and then the like dream demon comes after her, and then she wakes up in a bathtub. I did not like baths after that as a child. I saw that, I was like, no baths, I'm gonna fall asleep, it's over. But I'm fine, right?
Yeah. So mentioning Marzana was like, that was another thing when it came to lettering. I was like, I wanted her lettering to look differently. So it's got it has the black with the neon green lettering in it and stuff like that, and that she whistles when she's approaching and stuff like that. So those were all like guided, but then like Dave would also make choices on stuff. And one of the choices he made that I, you know, again, I'm very detailed, especially knowing the comic industry and everything else. I didn't notice it right away, but then all of a sudden I went back and reread it and was like, oh, that's a cool choice. Was the goddess Aurora. He put a different type of font for her when she's talking. And it's a very subtle thing, but if you notice it, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. She's kind of this ethereal type being. She would have wording that looks a little different to emphasize she has a different sound to her than everybody else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It reminds me of how Poison Ivy, more so ever lately. She's had in the past a little bit, but I think more than ever, she's having that different lettering in her issues and stuff, because she's got that creepy kind of green thing going on to kind of show what's going on there, which I think that's so cool. Like, I love it when characters, when it makes sense, of course, not just throwing colors out or anything, but when characters do have different lettering that matches that stuff, like Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing's a great example too, you know.
Or Ghost Rider is another one that I remember different wording and everything. So yeah,
it's so good. You have just you have such a great creative team. One of the cool things too is that, again, there's all kinds of different indie comics out there, right? This one looks like it should already be printed by Boom Studios. Like, I'm about to tweet at Boom Studios and be like, "What are you doing? This was literally made for your brand. What are you doing?"
Boom Studios is very much like in my radar, that if it could ever happen, I feel like that's where it should go.
Yeah.
The only problem that you face with a lot of publishers, and it's fine, it happens, is a lot of them don't accept unsolicited submissions. Right. So you kind of have to work through an agent and stuff like that. And I've considered that. And I'm thinking about it. But yeah, Boom Studios is definitely, they're one of those companies, and that's fine. They would probably get inundated with submissions if they didn't.
Right.
But the second I was writing it, I was like, this would so live in a perfect place with Boom Studios. Like, this, you know, fits into their library so well. So so we'll see what happens. So
yeah, I think there could be some fun. I mean, honestly, Scout as well. Scout's a great option too. They're not quite as big as Boom. I don't know how they do submissions. I've never submitted anything, but might be more of a chance there. And then you and By the Horns could crossover. See? Done.
Right. There we go.
Making it happen. Scout, I've done it for you. It's in a package. Take it.
I know I am connected with one of the creators of By the Horns on Facebook. So yeah, they've created something amazing. And yeah, when I read it, I was like, oh yeah, this we so have something similar and together. So yeah,
they're lovely. And if I can help, I'm happy to help create them. They've been on the show here too, and they're part of the neighborhood. So that's the thing. Once you're in the neighborhood, you have all these connections instantly.
Exactly.
Right there.
Exactly. So.
Right away. Well, tell us where we can get this book.
Okay, so right now, as of us recording this moment, we're just on social media, so people can direct message me. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. They can direct message me, and I will be able to provide them payment information, how they can pay, and they can give me their address and all that type of stuff. But however, we are working on a webpage, and probably, again, as of this recording, we're probably about a little bit more than a week out from that being launched. Once that's launched, it will be stealthhammer.com. So once that's launched, people can go there and literally click, and they can choose which cover they want, and they can pay by credit card and all that fun stuff, and we'll ship it out to them. So,
woohoo! I love it. I'm pulling up a screenshot of the Twitter, at least. It's the same across. It's StealthHammer for
it's
Twitter,
StealthHammer.
Instagram,
Yeah,
Facebook.
if you search any of them, you will find just search StealthHammer. You'll find it, no problem whatsoever.
Perfect.
And the cool thing too is the web page is the intention behind it when we launch it will be just to have a home page and a shopping page. However, that's the start of it. That's just to get it out there and make it easy for people to purchase it. What the intention is that once that is done, then we're going to add to it, and it'll have character bios, and it'll have creator backgrounds, and it'll have behind the scenes page and things like that, where you can kind of learn more about where the inspiration for certain characters came from, where did certain scenes come from, what are some of the plans for the future, things like that. People will be able to subscribe for our newsletter, all that fun stuff. So all those things will be forthcoming once we do the initial launch. Right now, our focus is make a very nice professional looking homepage that looks inviting to everybody, and get the shopping part set up so everyone can kind of see what they're getting. And then we'll also, besides the issues, we'll eventually also add other merchandise such as prints and bookmarks and magnets and buttons and all that stuff that we already have inventory for. So
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, here's the Twitter for you guys. Again, everything is at StealthHammer, but I'm just a Twitter mess, so I'm gonna show the Twitter. But yeah, follow them. I'll also put the links in the description of this video, so you guys can just click there, make your life easier. And I know you guys are also available to read on Global Comics.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that they've been amazing to work with. Because I looked into it and everything else, and I kind of reached out to them and asked them some questions, and they were like, "Oh yeah, here, you know." And the one night when we went to go upload the first issue, it wasn't working, and I couldn't get it uploaded. And I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what I was doing wrong. Yeah, I found out what happened was the same night I was trying to upload my issue is when they were uploading all of Valiant onto their site.
No. Oh no.
So that's why I was having a problem, was because they were uploading like thousands of and thousands of gigabytes of data. So I had emailed them and said, "Hey, I can't get this to work," and everything else. And they emailed me back and just said, "Yeah, we were having some system upgrades that were happening at the time." And then like the next day I get an email from Global Comics just that said, "We're happy that we just recently signed Valiant Comics. You can go." I'm like, "Oh, that's why I couldn't get my thing."
The dots suddenly connect. Everything is crystal clear now.
Yeah, totally valid. But I used it to my advantage, because then I tweeted it out. I was like, "Hey everyone," and I tagged Global Comics. I was like, "I'm sure you heard the amazing news from Global Comics. Yes, they signed Valiant, but also they have StealthHammer out there."
Yeah, I mean, look, you have a Valiant StealthHammer. They go together.
Right, exactly.
Why wouldn't you want both?
Exactly. So yeah, so that was funny, because I was thinking, okay, I'm using this newer platform. Oh my God, it's not working. It's, you know, of course you think like, why doesn't this work? I was on a Mac, so I thought maybe I go to a personal computer, a PC computer. Maybe that's why it's not working. No, it was just because they signed a huge deal, and
of course, and they were, of course, like the second the contracts are boop, and the pen is lifted, go.
Yeah. But StealthHammer #1 and StealthHammer #2 have both appeared on their top 10 recommended lists. So
I agree. Top 5 though, at least.
Thank you.
Top 5 every time.
Yeah, so that was really awesome too, to kind of see like people really like this, and that's been the rewarding thing for me, is like, you know, everyone that has ever created anything, whether it be a comic, a podcast, a movie, whatever you create, you always have that imposter syndrome. You always think like, you know, this is, you know, maybe I just like it and my friends are being nice.
Yeah.
And then you get people that, you know, don't owe you anything, and they really enjoy it. And I've had so many comic creators that I've known that have read it, and they're like, "You have something here, don't let it go. Just keep at it." And with the theme of the comic, I was like, I can't let it go. I'm not allowed to. Like, I can't quit on something where the theme of it is to not quit.
Right. The theme is, and this is not where the story ends. So this is not where the story ends.
Exactly.
This is just where it's beginning.
Exactly. So yeah, it's been an awesome ride. The intention when I first made it was to do one issue and just have fun with that one issue. And then of course, as soon as you do the one issue, you're like, okay, there's a lot more story here to tell. And we got some amazing like media coverage, and like I appeared on the like Good Morning Columbus promoting it, which was a weird experience. And yeah, I've been on the local news for it, and it's just like so crazy. And then the amount of podcast shows like yourself that have just been like awesome, wanting to like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's, you know, it's like, it really does make me feel like we've got something special here, and everyone working on it seems to feel that way too. So yeah, it's fulfilling a lifelong dream. I mean, I'm a huge comic reader, so to create my own is just like, it's something I can look back on my life and go, okay, that was amazing, and who knows where it'll go from here. I've got a lot of story to tell. So
yeah, no, I'm super excited. And Global Comics, they're platform I've only recently learned about, like this year probably. But they're great, especially for indie creators just needing to get exposure to their book and get it out there. It seems like they've been very good to people, so I'm glad to hear that they've been helping you. And other than, you know, Valiant taking the front seat, which again, Valiant, you know, you're great, but like, come on, guys.
It's fair. It was understandable. Once I found out what happened, I was like, okay. And then when I went to upload #2, everything was like super smooth, no problems.
Amazing.
I was like, okay, that's how it was supposed to be originally, but it was just a bad timing thing, or a good timing thing, depending on how you look at it. So But yeah, eventually I'm looking to potentially get it onto Comixology. That's that one has a little bit more requirements, not necessarily of the creator, but as far as like they have some weird like requirements as far as the image dimensions and file sizes and stuff. They're like, it needs to be this type of size, but then it can only be this big. And I'm like, that doesn't work. I have a wife who's a graphic designer, and she's like, I don't know how that works together. So
Comixology in general is just weird. Like the amount of complaints I hear about them, honestly, is just through.
They were amazing when they first came out, and now it's just like I don't know what's going on. But we're still going to try to get on there. It's a good platform to get on there, but yeah, who knows? Maybe our own website's just going to kind of take off. I think making it easier for everyone to get the comic is a huge step in the right direction. So
yeah, accessibility is definitely, I personally agree, just as somebody that, watches indie comics come out and also, is a big reader, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I get it? If there's only, the easier it is to get, the more likely I am to read it. If
you go here, go to this website and click this button, that's
exactly. Yeah, because we all got reading stacks, right? Digitally or physically. So if it's harder to get, it automatically goes down the list. Even if we really want it. So I think you're on the right track. I'm super excited to see more to come. I'm super excited to see the website. Honestly, in 5 to 10 years, I'm ready to see the animated series of this. I'm
telling you, like people have asked me, like, so what's the dream? Like, what's the goal at the end? I was like, it's not necessarily a goal, but I will definitely say it's a dream. Like, because the goal was to make an issue, and that's happened. And now everything after that to me is just amazing gravy. And we're still going to be working hard towards more stuff. The dream, however, is I always refer it to as the TMNT dream, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle dream. That started off as an indie comic being sold at like a hotel convention. And now look at what it is. It's got toys and movies and animated series and all that. I was like, that's the dream, is that it becomes something like that. I was like, just believe me, like the plushies of Ari could definitely work. The remote control Watts the robot that's behind me there and over here, all of that stuff can all happen. And yeah, the Netflix animated series can definitely happen, because Joel's artwork, we've talked about this before, like his artwork could translate so easily to a cartoon, to an animated series. So and he said that's his dream, like, is that he always thought his art would make a really good cartoon series. So yeah, who knows where it's going to go. I hope it takes off. We're working hard to just get people reading the story and enjoying it, and we hope that people enjoy it. That's my main focus right now. And then the more people that get it, the more people that enjoy it, then who knows where it goes after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, is I find when you are least expecting it, it's when it usually hits you. Kind of like you said with like the creativity story earlier. It's like, oh my gosh, this just popped out and I got it in 10 minutes. Just keep going, because I agree with everybody that you've talked about that says there's something here. There really is something magical here. You guys have something really great that can resonate with so many different audiences. So I'm super glad that I found y'all and that I got to even read it myself, and I'm just super excited to see what's to come as well.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, and that's this type of stuff that means the most to me. No matter what happens out of all of this, like, the thing that means the most to me is when someone reads it and they go, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was the goal behind the story, was just to tell a story that would be fun to read. Like we kind of forget about that sometimes with comics nowadays. Like, everyone wants to deliver some type of message. And I'm like, it's great to deliver a message as long as the story doesn't suffer. The story should come first, and then the message comes along with that. And like, there's a lot of messages in StealthHAMMER that weren't intended. They're just kind of there. Like, yes, there is the, don't give up, but there's also like legacy and family and love. And also, like, this is something that as we go on, we'll see it, like, the good guy side, it's technology and nature working together in harmony. But on the bad guy side, they're kind of forced together. So we're going to see things like cybernetics and things like that are being done on the bad guy sides, where it's like you're kind of forcing something onto nature, technology wise. And I've always been someone that believes that, like, the two could coexist. You can have amazing technology, and you can also appreciate nature, and they can work together. So there's messages like that were not intended to be in the story. They're not part of the story. But as I was writing the story, and these things just kind of happened, and the story comes first. So
Yeah, and if it happens naturally, then
Yeah.
leave it in. If it happens
Right.
naturally and it works, like
Yeah.
why change it? You know, why
Yeah.
say it wasn't there? I'm gonna take it out, you know?
Yeah. I had someone that asked me one time, they were like, so were you going for like a women empowerment thing by making the main hero a female? And I was like, I was like, if someone gets that out of the character, that's fantastic. I love it.
Mhm,
But the reason the character was a female character because it was based off my wife.
mhm.
If I was gay and I was married to a guy, the main character would be a gay male character. Like just that's where the inspiration came from. It came from my
Yeah,
spouse. And if, like I said, if my spouse was whoever, that's what the character would have been. But like I
right.
said, if someone reads it and goes, "Wow, I feel like great women empowerment from this and everything else," I'm like, fantastic. My idea is to write and create a strong character, no
Yeah.
matter who that character is or what that character is. Like, it's write a strong character, and then people can feel something for that character.
Yeah. No, I love it. And honestly, I think that's the way to go. Make a good character, a character that is strong and, you know, who they are and all that, and
Yeah.
everything else will come with it. I think one of the things I have a hard time with is when people ask writers in general, like, so what's this supposed to mean? Or what's this character
Right.
supposed to mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, why do you want them to tell you? Because if you got a different message out of it that's working for you,
That's great. Yeah.
yeah, then like
Fantastic.
what's the issue?
Yeah.
Like take what you like out of
To
it.
me,
Again, I know we want validation, but like,
yeah, sure.
come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. I mean, I want like diverse characters. I want all, representation for everybody and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I want it to be strong characters, because if they are strong characters, then someone, to your point, someone does get something out of it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why certain characters like Miles Morales or Spider Gwen and stuff like have
Mhm.
really resonated with people, because there was a really strong character build up with those characters. Is
Yeah.
because and that allowed people to kind of identify with them and everything else. I was like, I've had tons of characters that don't represent me at all that I still
Mhm.
identify with, because they have qualities to them that
Yeah.
are a part of who I am. So yeah, I mean, obviously Stealth Hammer. There's some of me in Stealth Hammer, so
Yeah, of
like,
course.
there has to be that element in there that I can identify with and everything. So yeah, to me, it's always story first. Develop a strong character. I mean, a strong female character to me is stuff like, I grew up with Princess Leia and
Mhm.
Ripley from Aliens and stuff like that. That like,
Mhm.
uh, these were strong female characters that, but they were strong female characters because you created an amazing story around them.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, it's not just, it's not the 90s. Look, it's a strong woman character.
right? Yeah,
Woohoo, girl
yeah,
power.
right.
Yeah, no, it's hey, we're creating strong characters, and yeah, there's women that are strong, there's men, there's non-binary, there's trans, who cares?
Right,
I
right. It's all
completely agree.
right, all down the line. You have everybody there, and it's like, and that's my goal for telling this story, is to tell some tell a well told story that people enjoy, with characters hopefully that they can kind of connect with. And to your
Yeah.
point, if they get something out of a certain character, then that is fantastic. And actually, that's the thing I'm most interested in, is when if someone tells me they read it and they're like, oh, I really like this character and here's why I like them. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that's cool. It might not be what I intended, but to your point, like, if that's what they got out of it, that's amazing. Like, that's fantastic. That to me tells me I created a character that is fully fleshed out. So
Yeah. 100%. No, I completely agree. And I completely see everything you're saying in the book, again, with every different character, not just Jamie. It's just such a great time. I'm super excited for everybody else to get in on this, to read it, for the website pop up. It's going to be great. Any last second plugs? Do you need to plug the socials again, yourself, wherever you want to plug?
just, yeah, if you just go onto any really most of the social channels. I even have a TikTok for Stealth Hammer that I did
Yeah.
briefly. I haven't done anything with it for a while, but when we were doing the second Kickstarter for the second issue, I was like, oh, let me try to reach a different audience, and I did ridiculous videos. If you want to hear what Ari the Elf might sound like, you can look up Stealth Hammer, because I did do a voice for him and put it in there, and it was a lot of fun. It was also completely ridiculous, but yeah, no, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and should have a lot more to post going forward. once the website's up and running, because we can share a lot more at that point. And yeah, hopefully news in the future of like a third issue or a publisher or both, really. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, awesome. I'm super excited. Everybody go check the socials at StealthHammer. Check out Global Comics. Go ahead and bookmark the site, stealthhammer.com. You'll need to click in like a week or two. It'll be ready for you.
Yeah.
Please read it. Let Ryan know what you think of it. Obviously, he cares what we think, which is super awesome. Not all creators do, or they really want the feedback all the time. So it's great to see that you are still willing to see it.
Yeah.
And yeah, anything last second before we get out of here?
No, I just thank you so much for having me on. It's always great when I can reach a new audience and stuff. So I just want to say thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it is my pleasure. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. And again, those of you guys watching, make sure that you check the description. All the links are there. So if you're lazy like me, you can just click away and get into the magical madness. And we will guys see you next time.